I left Milan on a bus heading south. I had fallen for Milan at first sight, and I wondered if it were possible to feel such wonder in another city. Back then, I had no idea how large my capacity for wonder truly was. It turned out that I would find a deep sense of belonging in Genova, tucked between the hills and the sea. My host picked me up at the station in her small red car, and we whizzed up the hills through twisting and turning streets to her beautiful home in the Castelletto. I took a walk through the neighborhood, getting lost for the first of many times in Genova. It was spring, and the city was in bloom. The flowers hanging over iron gates, bursting almost improbably out of cracks in the walls, the flowers would become one of my favorite things about Genova. I bought some groceries, pasta, chocolate, wine, sensible things. I went out onto the terrace and read a book that my Italian professor had gifted me. I sat and took in the place where I would stay for 5 weeks. And I was so truly happy. I could feel it bursting out of me in a way I hadn't experienced in years. It felt like falling in love. And in a way I was. I was falling back in love with my life. With flowers and strangers and sunsets. Oh, the sunsets in Genova are like nowhere else. From the terrace, I could see La Lampada, the symbol of the Genovese coastline, shining its light defiantly into the oncoming darkness. After some very mediocre grocery store focaccia, I settled in to watch cheesy game shows with my host. And that was the first day. The next morning was the first of many breakfasts taken at this small red table. Fruit and coffee and toast and yogurt. There was something so healing in this daily ritual. I went out to the terrace to read some more before leaving to explore the city. I left the Castelletto for the first time, descending into the winding alleyways called I Vicoli that lead you down and down and down until you reach the port. I made my way to the school where I was to study. Yes, it was inside this gorgeous building. In the Centro Storico, I wandered into bookshops and past the historic palazzi on Via Garibaldi, although I was so turned around by the time that I got there that I didn't even realize it was the famous street until days later. And then, as I turned the corner, I saw Teatro Carlo Felice, its imposing columns framing a statue of Giuseppe Garibaldi, and the most famous piazza in Genova, Piazza de Ferrari. It's actually not named after the car maker, as I assumed, but rather for Raffaele de Ferrari, an Italian aristocrat and politician. I was so captured by the architecture around the piazza, its ornate nature in stark contrast to many of the older buildings in Genova. In the center, there is a gorgeous fountain where light and water play as the sun sinks behind the Palazzo Ducale. La luce, the light, I fell in love with it in Genova. The way it hangs in the air, turning the pastel buildings vibrant. It fills the world with possibilities. Genova is a place where people dance in the streets. Look at them. They make me want to dance too. To be a kid again, filled with curiosity at what might be just around the corner. The Cattedrale di San Lorenzo was consecrated in 1118 and was built from the 12th to the 14th centuries. Think for a second of that span of time, of the life of these stones, of the stories this building holds. It is such a privilege to be in awe of your life. So I'm on this walk by myself up into the Castelletto at Genova. I just explored for the first time. Yeah, I'm literally, look how many stairs I'm going up. And then there's more up there. What I've realized is that while Milan is an easy city that opens before you, when you just go, it opens before you. Genoa is all small alleys and turning streets. It makes no sense. Everything is hidden. It's a city that makes you work harder to see its treasures, because I just walked up all of those steps and this is what I see. My walk home was filled, like all my walks were, with flowers. The next morning, I went to Teatro Carlo Felice for their Domenica Musica series. The pianist was only 19, and perhaps I saw a bit of myself in her. She performed with such confidence, a trust that her fingers could carry the music, freeing her to flirt with the audience, to challenge us, to make us laugh. It was the first time I had been able to listen to a classical concert and be truly present. When she played Rossini's Un Pensée à Florence, I felt every scale and descent, and I fell in love with the dream of what Florence could be. After refreshments in the lobby, I exited into Piazza de Ferrari and found myself wandering through the Palazzo Ducale. This became one of the places I loved most in Genova. The empty corridors, the arches and columns, the light streaming in. It is a refuge in the heart of the city. And that day, it felt like I had it all to myself. I ended up singing because that's what I felt moved to do. It was a day to bathe in music. What a marvelous thing.
Il sole ci sveglia, la colazione in cucina sembra essere pronta, anche le lumache cantano, anche gli impiegati ridono. Oggi non voglio pensare a niente, oggi voglio restare coi piedi a molla e addosso niente, cominciare a camminare verso cieli blu, dipinti di blu, ma che bello se ci sei anche tu.
I spent the afternoon down at the Porto Antico. There was a festival celebrating world cultures, so the waterfront was crowded with food vendors and dance performances. Outside Italy, a vendor from Reverie was selling focacciette. I ate the freshly fried dough filled with cheese and meat on the steps leading down to the water. This became another of my favorite places in Genova. People lay down on the steps, gathered in groups or with their significant others, to prendere il sole, take in the sun. It was finally time to make my way back across the city, an uphill climb best taken at intervals. I took a break back at Palazzo Ducale, where I felt the need to sing again. Something was breaking free. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't pushing something out of myself. Instead, I was giving breath to the music, simple and spiritual. I listened to it echo around the portico, my voice and the building making music together.
Oh, I thought that I was gone and I'm cleared. Now it's getting harder. Oh, hold on, I thought that I was doing so well. Oh, like everything was under a spell. Now it's getting harder. Loved you fully in the way I could. I fought the current and running just the way you would, and now I'm in the creek, and it's getting harder. I'm like falling water. I never loved you fully in the way I could. I fought the current, running just the way you would, and now I am stuck upstream, and it's getting harder. Oh, I'm like falling water.
As I climb back into the hills, I stop by the Spianata di Castelletto, an overlook perched above the entire city. There, I overheard a girl just younger than me animatedly talking to her boyfriend in English. Some foreign courage bubbled up in me, some desire to connect, and so I introduced myself to them. Lauren and Andrea were the first of many strangers I met while wandering Italian cities, and though Lauren wasn't staying long, she would later introduce me to another friend in Genova, Sophia. In that moment, I felt so brave. I was saying to myself before, I feel like after you have a first kiss, like the first kiss of a great love. That's what today felt like. The following days were a whirlwind of introductions. I had my first day of language school, I visited the theater where I would spend the next 5 weeks, and I cooked an Italian recipe for the first of many times. I had lunch with another new friend, Sylvia, and then dashed off to my first rehearsal. It wasn't all perfect. Late at night on the train home from the theater, I wondered if I had, as I always do, overscheduled myself. But the truth was, these were the growing pains of a time of immense growth and change. Spending my spring in Italy made me braver, more confident, more independent, more curious. I can't say I've become every bit the person I want to be, but I think I'm on the way to getting there. And it means so much to be able to share this journey with you. Thank you so much for watching, and please do like and subscribe to join me next time for more beautiful days in Italy. Ciao.